question in here from Flores. Let's see. If we were to reset the hypothalamus, so those who got diabetes by brain injury could get a chance. Is that
okay?
Are there people who, because of brain injuries, get diabetes?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's called diabetes insipidus, and it's either for the hypothalamus or the pituitary, either one of those. And what that causes is frequent urination because you can't make a hormone called ADH, or you don't make a hormone called antidiuretic hormone. So you're just peeing constantly. You can't, it just doesn't stop. But that's a different issue entirely. And now they have a nasal spray for that, and that works pretty well. It's called DDAVP.
Okay. Good question here from John. What is a better choice, Mediterranean diet or the keto diet for type 2?
Okay. So here's the deal for type 2. There's only 3 things you need to avoid in type 2: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Everything else is okay. So what is it that we put out a diet where we allow you to eat fats and proteins, but you don't eat carbohydrates? That's the detox part. You want to detox. So the Mediterranean diet is a reasonable diet, but it's got carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So for most people, if they already have too much and they're toxic, then it's not going to be enough unless they're eating like 1 meal a day or something like that. Then that would work great. If you had a Mediterranean diet eating 1 meal.
Hello everyone. We are live streaming. We are live. Leslie is rocking the Zoom today, getting us all set up.
Hello, everyone. We're back. We're running a little bit late, but we're going to tell you why, because Joe was just sharing some stuff. We didn't think he was going to be able to join us, but he's here. He snuck out of Junior.
Can you see this? Is that backwards or just for me? My camera is like trying to follow my face, but I won't let it. So this is my name tag. I was at Junior Achievement this morning at the local intermediate school with my wife, teaching kids about economics, budgeting, credit cards, debit cards, insurance, risk, all that fun stuff. So 6th graders, you can imagine I had fun. Is that what grade Sayla's in?
Sayla's in 5th.
5th, okay.
She has Junior Achievement also, and it's fun when she comes home because she'll say things to me like, so-and-so put down that a computer would only cost $200, and I know that those Macs cost like $1,200. And I'm like, yeah, you know stuff. This is so good. I love it. It's cool.
They totally revamped the curriculum this year, so it was a lot different, but it was good. So anyways, I'm here for a short time, and then I'm flying to Texas tonight, but welcome everybody to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. Leslie and Dr. Saunders, take it away. I'll just be here in the background.
All right. Well, guys, it's episode 176 today. So we've been around for a little while, and I just feel like these webinars just keep getting better and better. I get a lot of emails from you guys wondering how you can see the replays, or some of you have asked us to reschedule these so that you can watch them. The good news is that these are all available on YouTube. We're a little bit behind. I'm getting trained on how to get those on YouTube and do some editing, but they will all be there. Last week, we actually did our top 25 most asked questions, and it was a phenomenal webinar. So keep in mind, episode number 175, you're going to want to make sure that you watch that. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, you will be able to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you do that, make sure you can click a little bell, I believe, on the YouTube channel, and that will subscribe you. Is that right? I think so. Anyway, then you'll get notified when all of those upload, and you can watch those whenever it works best for you. So just some words of wisdom there to do. It is such a good resource. So make sure you do that. Also, I am going to let Dr. Saunders give us a disclaimer before we dig into the good stuff concerning type 2.
Okay, so all of the information that we give on this, that's not just me, but all of us are giving information, is for general use, for general information purposes, and may not apply to you specifically. So it's really important to take the information and ask the question, does this information apply to me? Is this something that I should do? And you may need testing. You may need professional help, an expert to help you decide if that's right for you. So make sure you apply it properly.
One of the things that I love about Dr. Saunders, I've known him for a long time, and he's worked with so many patients. We mention the diabetes solution kit all the time. I'm taking notes all over mine. So if you see some strange black marks all over it, that's why. But he's created this for all of you, right? And it has really good information. And this is exactly what he presents to his patients that come into his office. But he also opens up this webinar for you to ask those specific questions about you, right? So if you found that maybe something doesn't work quite the way you thought it would, you can ask here. And he'll either tell you what he's found from his experience, or he'll direct you to his or direct you to your doctor as well. But we will be referencing the diabetes solution kit quite often on this webinar. So if you don't have a copy of this, you might want to do that. We get a lot of people that say, great, which supplement should I take to reverse type 2? And Dr. Saunders will say, this is what you got to do. You got to start here. You got to work through the phases. Phase 1 is a low carb eating plan, and you got to do it. You got to do that. That's where you got to start. So if you want more information about this, you can find it at bartonwebinar.com. I don't know, Joe maybe has already posted that in the chat, but I will do that as well. So check that out. And in fact, let us know if you already have this. I know we get a lot of people who are new on this webinar. So let us know if you've purchased this. Today, we're going to answer a lot of your questions that have come in. I'm going to check out the Q&A. That's kind of the best place for me to manage your questions. So type them in there. If you're on Facebook, I will try to respond to those as well. But we're going to ask Dr. questions. Ask Dr. questions. That's good. I like that. Dr. Questions. We're going to ask Dr. Saunders all of the questions that we maybe didn't get to last week, or things that you are wanting to know about. So post those in there and we'll do our best to get to those. So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. So we're focusing on type 2. I get questions throughout the week. And this one came in from Cindy, and I'm going to go ahead and just ask you. Cindy says, I do have a question that I hope Dr. Dr. Questions can answer. I had 2 medical procedures within 24 hours of each other in November involving anesthesia. I understand it can raise your blood sugar. My problem is this: my blood sugar rarely goes under 170, even after 10 hours of fasting, sometimes 16 hours of fasting. With your help, I had it under control before, with my morning sugars averaging between 110 and 115. I had lost 37 pounds and had quit taking my metformin. Okay, have these back-to-back anesthesia medicines caused this drastic rise to 170, the low, and it's not unusual for 400 after meals. It's been 2 months, and I thought things would be back to normal.
Wow. Yeah, in 2 months, you'd expect it to be back to normal. Okay, so the anesthesia itself is not the problem. The anesthesia itself doesn't change your blood sugar. That's not the reason. It's the stress of the procedures. So the anesthesia is part of that, but the way the adrenal glands respond to that is by making extra cortisol, because that's what you need to get going, to get the body working again. And that extra cortisol causes you to be more insulin resistant. So even though you have insulin, if you eat that, then the sugar rises up really high. So the 2 months is a long time. Usually it would come down prior to that. But what's interesting, if you look at a stress response from surgery or an accident or the death of a loved one, or you have all these stress responses. Dr. Kabat-Zinn in Massachusetts did a lot of research on this and looked at people's the actual adrenal output in the stress response, and found that some people, their stress response, their adrenal glands, their cortisol levels go up, and then within days they come back down and they're normal. Other people are like up for weeks, and other people like a year later or almost a year later, their cortisol levels are still elevated. And so it's that part of it is the surgery itself, part of it is the anesthesia, and there's another part of how your body responds to it, and why that happens is highly variable, and that's something that I couldn't answer for an individual on the phone or on a webinar. So what to do about that? Well, the best thing to do is to get that stress response down. And I think I told you the story of Julie, right? There's probably a lot of new people, so I'm just going to tell you if you've heard it before, stop me. Good luck. So Julie had diabetes, like uncontrollable, kind of like what you're talking about. It's always like 200, and when she eats, it's like 300 or 400. And and we tried controlling her. I sent her to a specialist, at Sansom Clinic that has the, world-renowned diabetes specialist. Sent her back to me with 4 medications and 200 units of insulin a day. Now, if you know how much insulin your body makes, maybe 10 units a day, she was injecting 200 units a day, and her pancreas was working and making insulin. So she had a lot of insulin on board, and her blood sugar was still always over 200 up to 300 or whatever. One day she called me and she said, I feel horrible. This is awful. Oh, I feel like I'm going to die. And I asked, what's your blood sugar? She said, 35. I'm like, 35? That's too low. What did you do? She said, nothing. And I said, well, like drink some orange juice or something and get it back up, and get off those medications and stop the insulin. Her blood sugar was normal. It was like from one day to the next, it's 200 plus, and then boom, normal from one day to the next. So it turns out it took us a long time to figure it out. No changes in diet, no changes in exercise. She didn't quit drinking sodas. She was drinking diet soda. She didn't quit drinking sodas. And what really happened was her daughter moved out. So when she and her daughter were living together, her grown daughter, they were fighting constantly. And then when her daughter moved out and moved into her own apartment, then all of a sudden they're best friends. She's calling her mom, hi mom, how you doing? And it's a lot of, and so the stress went away entirely and her blood sugar became normal. So how do you remove the cause of stress in someone who's had surgery, for example? Well, that's not so easy. So we usually do things like ashwagandha is an herbal adaptogen. It helps the adrenal glands to adapt to stress. There's also something called phosphatidylserine, otherwise known as PS. PS 100 is 100 milligrams of phosphatidylserine. And what that does is kind of prevents the adrenal glands from putting out excessive amounts of cortisol. So I give people supplements. And the other thing is, this may not surprise you, fasting shuts off the adrenal glands. So you actually turn things off. And then when you eat, you restart everything. I know we've talked about this a lot before, about how you can reset your system by fasting for a period of time. How long? Apparently it's about 3 days, according to Dr. what's his name? Walter Longo at USC does longevity research, and he's been doing a lot of work on fasting. It's about 5 days. So between 3 and 5 days of fasting is enough. And just drink water, and then that will that will like bring it down, and then you can start eating again, and it should reset the system. But your first meal needs to be a morning meal. It needs to be like 8 o'clock in the morning. And so those are some options.
Yes, good stuff. Flores is asking a question here. One thing that we get asked often is, first of all, is this the only way to get rid of type 2?
No, it's not the only way. We just chose an easy way.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other ways. In fact, if you've ever heard of the McDougall diet, I go online and look that up. And it's a no fat, high fiber, high carb diet. And you're like, what? How do you get a high carb diet? Your diabetes goes away? Well, yeah, because you're not eating any fat. Fat makes you resistant to insulin. So you could do that diet, and that works too. We chose the ketogenic diet because it works for most people, and it's pretty easy to do. So it's pretty easy to eat 20-gram carbohydrate diet.
Flores is asking about, would it be better if we explored fungus, mold, and the frequency for them, and use binders to remove them? Do you have any thoughts on that kind of stuff as far as if that may be affecting type 2?
Okay. Yes, it can. Any kind of inflammation, infections, molds, parasites, all of that can contribute to type 2. And part of that is the excessive adrenal output due to stress, due to the inflammation, the stress of the inflammation. And there's some evidence that just decreasing inflammation in whatever way that works, just taking ibuprofen, for example, decreases the risk, decreases the diabetes, decreases like cancer risks. So you could just block inflammation and have some benefit from that. But ideally, you want to get that insulin resistance down, and the inflammation goes away pretty quickly. So then the question about molds and yeast and all that stuff. Okay, so here's the deal. Nobody gets a yeast or mold infection unless they have an immune system dysfunction. So unless your immune system is non-functional, you can't get yeast infections. So you don't look at it as specifically a diabetes problem. There are plenty of people that have high blood sugar that don't get yeast infections. So you have to ask the question, what is this? What's the yeast thing? Okay, immune system dysfunction. There's a couple of things to think about. One is your bacteria in your intestines. If you don't have the right bacteria, or if you're growing yeast in your intestines, then look there first, because if you fix that, you often fix the whole thing. So if you have dysbiosis, meaning the wrong kinds of bacteria and yeast growing in your intestines, then it's going to affect your whole body, including suppression of the immune system. So that's the first thing to look at. The second thing to look at is sugar. Yeast loves sugar, not glucose, sucrose. So if you're eating anything with sucrose in it, and sucrose is your table sugar, that's the white sugar, and vegetable sugars, and fruit sugars, most fruits, apples have sucrose in them. So looking at your diet and not feeding those yeast is a good idea. And then the third thing is to make sure you have a good functioning immune system. And part of that is decreasing stress. Another part is getting the right nutrients. If you're deficient in zinc, your immune system's suppressed. If you're deficient in vitamin D, your immune system's suppressed. So one of the reasons we have Synachroma is to get all of those nutrients that are common deficiencies in people that have type 2. And some of what those things do, like especially the selenium and the vitamin D, is help the immune system to function properly. So making sure you have the right nutrients too.
Good stuff. Verna, I'm just going to share this quick story. Verna said, I bought the manual, the diabetes solution kit, a year ago. I have lost 50 pounds. My blood sugar has dropped from 160 to 95, 105. And I'm taking 1 metformin instead of 3. So,
wow.
Yay. That is
good
amazing.
work.
Great job, Verna. That's exciting. That's life-changing. Great
Yeah.
job. Okay. Speaking of diabetic medications, we hear a lot about metformin, but Ronald is wondering what your opinion on the drug Ozempic for type 2 might be.
Ozempic is okay. One of the issues with it is that it does increase insulin. It does cause insulin resistance over time. And hold on a sec.
No problem. Again, guys, if you want to find out more information, you can go to bartonwebinar.com. So Dr. Saunders mentioned Synachroma, for example, can be found there. We have all of our supplements listed there, as well as the diabetes solution kit. So that's going to be the website that you're going to want to go to for all of the things that we pretty much talk about. Okay. And a link to the YouTube channel is there as well. So take it away.
Okay. So Ozempic is something that can be used on a temporary basis. And so if your doctor puts you on Ozempic, okay, fine. But it's one of the ones that you're going to get off of when your blood sugars start coming into the normal range. So if you start seeing numbers like you're between 70 and 90 a lot of the time, between 4 and 5 if you're in Canada, then you may not want to be on that. So, but don't just stop it. You talk to your doctor and say, hey, my blood sugars are getting low, which medication, because you may be on more than one if you're on Ozempic, usually you are. So call your doctor and say, okay, my blood sugars are getting low. I'm a little worried about hypoglycemia. Which medication is likely to cause hypoglycemia? And Ozempic is one of those, and glyburide, glipizide. Metformin, on the other hand, is not one of those. There's a lot of people that take metformin that just do it. They don't have diabetes. They take it because as a longevity drug to help you live longer. It prevents cancer and it helps you to burn fat instead of sugar. I prefer fasting instead, so just sort of to give you an idea of the medications.
One of the things that has come up is berberine, and where that might fit in as an option for a supplement to take. Maybe can it be taken in place of a drug?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And as a matter of fact, the studies in berberine show them to be roughly equivalent to any of the oral diabetes medications. And here's the nice thing about it. It doesn't have the side effect of raising the insulin level and causing you to be more insulin resistant like those other medications we were just talking about. So yeah, I think there's benefits to berberine. How you would do that, I don't know. You probably add the berberine in first, and then as your blood sugar drops down, then you ask the doctor which medication you should stop first. That would be a good way to do it. But yes, you can replace medications with berberine.
Awesome. Been hearing a lot about berberine, and we just may in fact be releasing a new product soon called berberine.
Called berberine. And what's interesting about berberine? It also has a lot of effects. I mean, we narrowly think maybe in blood sugar terms because we're talking about diabetes on this webinar, but kind of like metformin, it prevents cancer, it induces longevity. It turns on the genes that prevent cancer from forming, for example. So it's a good longevity herb as well. However, one way to look at berberine is you want it intermittently. So how that looks like 1 week on, 1 week off, or this is for longevity. If you're doing it to keep your blood sugar normal, then just take it every day. But for longevity, you want it like maybe 5 days on, 2 days off kind of thing. Having it intermittently is a better way.
And Joe and I were wondering too how that might affect your gut health. He and I thought we noticed something when we took it for the first time.
Berberine definitely affects your gut health because it changes the intestinal flora and the bacteria in your intestines. In fact, berberine is often used like if people have dysbiosis and they have bad bacteria growing, you can take berberine to suppress those bad bacteria or even yeast, or it also suppresses some parasites.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, it does. Berberine is very useful.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, guys. So be watching for that. We may be sharing some more information. If you are a part of the Facebook group Barton webinar, you'll notice I posted a picture of that product and maybe even a new fiber greens flavor. So be watching. Okay. We have a question here. This is an interesting question. Ronald is wondering if you could explain brown fats and can we naturally trigger them? I'm not even sure what brown fats are.
Okay. We have two different kinds of fat in our body. We have fat that's used for storage of energy. And this is triglycerides, and it's the white fat, it's the yellow fat underneath your skin, for example, and that is what we use for energy. And actually, what's really interesting is most of us use more fat during the day for energy than sugar, except when you have type 2, that changes. So, someone who doesn't have type 2 might use 2/3 of their energy every day comes from fat, and 1/3 comes from sugar. Someone with type 2, when they have high insulin, it blocks the fat use for energy, and they have 1/3 or less of energy coming from fat and 2/3 from sugar. Well, that leads you to a problem, because the fat is a very stable, I look at it like a low octane fuel. Fat is something that it's like a diesel fuel. You could run a diesel engine because it's relatively low energy. It's not a hot engine. Diesel engines they don't run hot. They can have a longer stroke. That's what fat is when you're burning it. So you can run a diesel truck, for example, from California to North Carolina, no problem, all the way across the country, no stopping, and it's easy, right? And the engine can run for 1,000,000 miles easy. Whereas if you take a gasoline engine, which is a higher octane fuel, or even worse, like a nitromethane engine in a race car, that engine's only going to last for 500 miles, and it's done. So in the same sense, when you're burning fat, you're using a low octane fuel. You're making you're doing less oxidative damage. You're not damaging DNA nearly as much. You're getting the energy you need from all those to do all the things your metabolism does, but you're not doing the damage. So you can run a long time on fat. And instead of, so you want to burn more fat instead of sugar. And that's where the ketogenic diet comes in. So that's, you look at phase 1 of our program, what is it? Well, you're only eating 20 grams of carbohydrates. That's not enough for your body to live on. So we're forcing you to burn fat. That's kind of what metformin does. That's kind of what berberine does. Okay, now let's get into brown fat. What is brown fat? Brown fat is not energy. It's not, you can't use that for energy. You're not going to run your body on that. It's metabolic fat. Some people have more than others, but brown fat is used specifically to raise your temperature, your body temperature, just burning. So that's why it's brown fat, because it doesn't go into the cells to be used for energy. It just burns this diesel fuel, the low octane fuel, to just keep the energy up, to just keep your temperature up, for example, to maintain your autonomic nervous system and your functions well. So brown fat, metabolic fat, is really for other purposes than like running and doing stuff. Why do you need it? If you have a lot of brown fat, then your metabolism is different, and you're not using high energy like sugar to keep your body temperature up, because that creates a whole bunch of oxygen free radicals, and does a whole bunch of damage to DNA, creates cancer and inflammation. And so a lot of people, when they have high insulin and they don't have much brown fat, they're burning sugar for energy to keep their body temperature up, for example. And they're making oxygen-free radicals and damaging, so they have all this inflammation. So you get the insulin down, like you do phase 1 of the program. And what happens? You switch from using sugar to using fat, and you get more brown fat. So how do you increase the brown fat? Well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know. That's the question. How do you increase it? Mm-hmm. So I'm just speaking to the type 2 diabetes here, and that is by getting the insulin level down. That's a huge thing for that. But I don't know that increases the amount of brown fat that you have, because you want more brown fat. Actually, you want your fat to be stored in brown fat, because that's your metabolic fat, and that gets burned without doing damage. So
very interesting. Okay.
So the actual answer to your question of how you get more, I don't know, but just kind of working in that, with type 2, do phase 1 of the program, and that gets you burning fat and allows your body to start burning fat.
One thing I'm going to mention that the Diabetes Solution Kit, Dr. Saunders mentions phase 1, 20 grams of carbs or less. Guys, that's temporary, just so you know. That's not for the rest of your life, and those are net carbs. And so that is phase 1. There are 3 phases in the book. The hardest part is just phase 1, to take care of some things right away, right? So, but the book does talk about how to fuel your body best forever as well. We have a couple questions that have come in about nerve pain and neuropathy. And so one of them is from Denise. Denise, I believe is how you pronounce it. Just started the program. Is there anything that will help with the nerve pain until I start seeing results?
Yeah. So nerve pain is mostly a problem with circulation. So if you're not getting enough blood flow to the nerves, then they just don't work very well. And so tingling, numbness is an indication that you're not getting enough blood flow. And if that continues over a long time, then they become completely numb, and which means they might be even dead. So very often, though, even with numbness, they're just asleep and they're not dead, so that they can actually come back. So how does that happen? By increasing circulation. Exercise is a great way. Walking is such a good exercise, but there's all kinds of things you can do. There's even those vibroplates, those vibrating plates. Those are really useful in diabetes. They actually improve circulation and they actually improve your stability. It prevents falls, for example. Walking, running, all the exercises. Okay. And then magnesium dilates blood vessels and helps the blood flow. Getting a lot of fiber in your diet helps to grow the glycocalyx that's inside the blood vessels, so that you have good blood flow through your blood vessels. If that glycocalyx is messed up, then there's slow blood flow through your blood vessels. And that's a lot of the reason for the neuropathy is the tiny blood vessels, the arterioles, the little teeny ones, that when they get the glycocalyx messed up, the blood doesn't flow through them. So you check your pulse, you go, no, I got a good pulse. You check your pulse in your foot, oh, I got a good pulse, but my foot's cold and I'm getting neuropathy. Well, that means the big blood vessels are fine, but the tiny blood vessels are messed up. So for that, we made something called Nervala. And that nerve, and then ALA is ALA, that's alpha lipoic acid. So that was Joe's idea to name it. So Nervala is benfotiamine with alpha lipoic acid. And benfotiamine is a vitamin B1. And it's a fat-soluble vitamin B1 that gets into this glycocalyx into it gets through the membrane of the blood vessel and helps to repair that glycocalyx so that there's good blood flow through those tiny arterioles, the ones that you could only really see with a microscope. So start taking Nervala, go on the phase 1 of the program, and then improve your circulation any way you can. Heat helps, icy hot, liniments can help, exercise, any kind of exercise helps.
Good stuff. I'm going to post a link just to our Barton publishing store so you can see all of these supplements. And a reminder that you can use code webinar25 for 25% off. Concerning, you had mentioned that heat helps to increase blood flow, and someone had asked if sitting in, I got to find the question, something about sitting in a hot tub. Yes, would it help? Okay, so hot tub improves blood flow to the brain and helps with memory loss. This is something that Roy had been told. Does that kind of increased blood flow help with diabetes, especially neuropathy in the feet and hands?
Yes. Yeah. So anytime you improve the blood flow, you're gonna make whatever's not working because of a lack of blood flow work. So in that case, yes, with the neuropathy, that's a great idea.
So you heard it here first, folks. Get a hot tub. Honestly, actually, we just got one and we love it. It's very cold in South Dakota, and I get very cold at about 4 or 5 o'clock every day. And so that's kind of the time that I like to use it the most. But all right, you guys, these are great questions. A lot of these are questions we haven't had before. So this is fun. In fact, here's another one. Tim Sweet, how do you suggest treating trigger finger with type 2?
Oh, okay. Trigger finger is an entirely different situation. I don't think it's related to type 2 specifically. People that get trigger finger it's usually a genetic kind of abnormality. And what it is a tendon cyst. Tendons make everything work. You know, you have a muscle that's in your forearm, and the muscle pulls on a tendon, and the finger goes like that, and the muscle releases it, and the finger goes like that. And so it's like, when you have a trigger finger, what that means is that tendon, which is the little cord inside there that's pulling your finger down, has a little cyst on it or a little bump on it. And as it goes through the holds, the ligaments that hold it down to your hand, it goes click, pop, 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 pop as it goes through those little tunnels that the ligaments make. And that's what a trigger finger is. And sometimes it can get stuck. I've seen people with stuck trigger fingers, like it won't come up. And they have to have surgery to have that ligament cut so that the tendon can go flow freely. And then they'll have their tendon will stick out of their hand because it's not being held down anymore. As surgically, yeah, but there are other things. Okay, so not with diabetes. So that's just what a trigger finger is. Okay, so now what do you do about it? People use like DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, which helps to decrease inflammation and get rid of those cysts or bumps on the tendon. Mostly, if you go to a hand surgeon, they'll inject cortisone in there. The problem with cortisone is, yes, it does get rid of the inflammation because it kills all the inflammatory cells in there, but it also kills the cells that regenerate and repair your tendons. So it's not a long-term solution. And in fact, I had somebody that had an injection recently. She came in and she'd had it wasn't a trigger finger, but it's a tendonitis anyway. So she had a cortisone injection. And it got in outside into her skin, and now she has this, the skin is atrophic, it's called, because of the cortisone got in there. But it does the same thing to the tendons. You can't repair your tendons if you've had cortisone injections. So what do you do instead? DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. You can put it on, and be careful to follow protocol. You don't put it on full strength every day. You put it on intermittently. And you can put stuff in it like MSM, methylsulfonylmethane, or you can take MSM, methylsulfonylmethane, is another thing you can do. And then glucosamine, chondroitin, and decrease inflammation with like turmeric or boswellia.
Awesome. Okay. Emmanuel is asking, he just got some tests back, and what does it mean? Okay, mild tricuspid and mitral valve regurgitation, left ventricle ejection fraction estimated by 2D at 50 to 55%.
Okay, so mild regurgitation in a valve is not usually concerning. Mitral tricuspidal, those are common issues, and mild regurgitation, what it means is that when your heart beats, the valve closes, and so the blood can only go one way. So as your heart relaxes, then the blood can come in, and the other valve closes so it doesn't go backwards. So the valves are what keeps it flowing through. So if your heart's beating and your valve is supposed to close, but it leaks a little bit, then that's just a leaky valve, and it lets it make the blood's going backwards. Some amount of blood is going backwards. And when it's mild, it's usually not very concerning. What's interesting in diabetes is that the mitral valve, especially, it's a muscle that holds that mitral valve down so that it doesn't regurgitate, so it doesn't let the blood back into the right or the left atrium. And so when you fix your diabetes, when you have normal blood sugar, when your energy systems are functioning well, that will go away. You actually, the muscle works better and keeps the valve from regurgitating. So the other valves don't have muscles on their leaflets like the mitral valve does. But so that one you could actually improve. So the other thing that you said was the ejection fraction. The ejection fraction is how much of the blood that's in your heart, in your left ventricle they're talking about, actually gets out with each beat. So in your case, it's about 50%. So you have, let's say 500, no, let's say you have 100 cc's of blood, and every time your heart beats, 50 cc's of it is going out into your body. And then it gets back to 100. And so each time you're beating is 50 cc's. Now think about this. What if you only had a 20% ejection fraction? What that means is you have 100 cc's of blood, and each time it beats, it only beats 20 cc's of blood coming out. That means it has to beat 2.5 times just to get up to your 50 cc. You have to beat 2.5 beats. So it's going to require a lot more beats to get your blood out. And it's not very efficient. It's very inefficient at pumping it out. So normal, above 50% is kind of normal. Yours is borderline at 50%. We always want to see 60 to 70%, ideally. So, and so you think, well, that's not much different. Yeah, that's a big difference. Pumping out 50 cc's of blood compared to 70 cc's of blood with each beat. That is a big difference. So how do you deal with that? What that means is your muscle has mildly limited function. And so you want to increase the ability for that muscle to contract. Exercise is indispensable. You can't do it without exercise, because the people that tell you can build your muscles while sitting on the couch really aren't living in reality. You have to actually do something. So without exercise, nothing else works. So I'm going to tell you supplements, and you're going to go out and buy the supplements and go, well, I've been sitting on the couch popping these supplements and my ejection fraction didn't change at all. No, that's not the point. Yes, the supplements might help. And so there's 4 supplements. This is Dr. Steven Sinatra's work in New York, where he looked at people with congestive heart failure, and he's written several books. If you want to look up heart, Reverse Heart Disease Now by Stephen Sinatra. Okay, so here's the 4 things: magnesium, L-carnitine, coenzyme Q10, and ribose. So D-ribose would be about 2 teaspoons a day. CoQ10 is about 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams a day. L-carnitine is about 2,000 milligrams a day. And magnesium is about 400 milligrams a day. So those are the nutrients to help rebuild the heart muscle. But if you don't exercise, they're not going to do anything.
Okay. Guys, I just want to quick tell you, berberine is loaded on our site. So store.bartonnutrition.com, you can get it there. Also, our brand new Fiber Greens flavor, iced tea lemonade, is also available there. Krish did ask, he's going to order Fiber Greens today. Is the currently available product formulated with stevia? I want to make sure before ordering.
Yeah, it is. It is. My question is, does the iced tea lemonade have caffeine in it? Does it actually have tea in it, or is that just a flavor?
Oh, you know what? It must just be a flavor, I think. Natural. Well,
I don't know.
That's a good question. I think it's just the flavoring, but
yeah.
Good question. And you guys already know Dr. Saunders' thoughts about sweeteners. And so, and in fact, guys, I got an email today. Well, it wasn't today, but I was rereading through it from someone who introduced, actually, it was the same person, I think, who noticed that his blood sugar would spike after chewing sugar-free gum. He noticed the same thing when he introduced, I believe it was a diet soda for the first time in a long time. And it just spiked his blood sugar. And so you got to watch that with sweeteners. And Dr. Saunders, the Fiber Greens are a good product, but he also knows that not everyone can tolerate these sweeteners. And so think about that, when you're considering purchasing these. But anyway, they are both available, store.bartonnutrition.com. We just have had a lot of people that wanted that Fiber Greens. So it is available. It is stevia sweetened. Okay. And we'll move on. All right. Oh boy, we got some work. Okay. Flores says, I had some questions in the chat. Would you please ask them? All of them are important. Yes, I cannot get to all of these questions, but I think I'll look for some of yours, Flores. This is one that comes up quite often. Dan says, I've been on the program for 2 months. Morning reading is 110, the rest of the day under 100. Why is my morning number so high?
Yeah, that's a common issue. Okay, so you want the morning to be between 70 and 90, or between 4 and 5 if you're in Canada. Why is the morning reading high? It's partly, probably, likely your stomach is empty and you're not absorbing any sugar. You haven't eaten anything. You have no artificial sweeteners, and you're just not making any insulin. And so, or not making very much insulin. You have a low amount of insulin. And at the same time, when the insulin drops low, the islet cells in the pancreas start making something called glucagon. So insulin goes down because you haven't eaten in a long time. Glucagon goes up, and glucagon tells the liver, hey, make some more sugar. So then the liver's making sugar, putting out sugar, raising your blood sugar, but your insulin is really low. So you're not bringing that sugar into the cell. So you have higher blood sugar when you're fasting than when you're eating. Because when you eat, the insulin goes way up, and then your blood sugar comes down. So don't worry about that. That's not the issue. But that's a really good point, and that is, you want that blood sugar, the morning blood sugar, to be in the 70 to 90 range, or 4 to 5 if you're in Canada. You want to keep it in that range so that you're no longer insulin resistant.
All right. Lars says, I have got ED due to diabetes too. How does Niagara Excel work on that?
Okay. Niagara Excel, let's see. It's not specifically for diabetes. It's for people who have like low testosterone and those kinds of issues. If you don't fix your blood vessels, then your ED is not going to get better. So you still have to fix the blood vessels, and the Niagara XL is going to do nothing at all if your blood vessels aren't working. So how do you get the blood vessels to work? Well, that's what we were talking about with the neuropathy too, because the same thing that causes neuropathy is the same thing that causes the ED. The blood vessels aren't working. So getting those blood vessels working means controlling your blood sugar, getting back into the normal range, and then repairing the glycocalyx. And then I would try Nervala first, because Nervala has the benfotiamine alpha lipoic acid to repair the small blood vessels. And those are the ones that have the muscles that actually cause an erection. So I would try that before I would try Niagara Excel.
Okay. I had a question in here from Floris. Let's see. If we were to reset the hypothalamus, so those who got diabetes by brain injury could get a chance. Is that
okay?
Are there people who, because of brain injuries, get diabetes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's called diabetes insipidus, and it's either for the hypothalamus or the pituitary, either one of those. And what that causes is frequent urination, because you can't make a hormone called ADH, or you don't make a hormone called antidiuretic hormone. So you're just peeing constantly. You can't, it just doesn't stop. But that's a different issue entirely. And now they have a nasal spray for that. And that works pretty well. It's called DDAVP.
Okay. Good question here from John. What is a better choice, Mediterranean diet or the keto diet for type 2?
Okay. So here's the deal for type 2. There's only 3 things you need to avoid in type 2: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Everything else is okay. So what is it that we put out a diet where we allow you to eat fats and proteins, but you don't eat carbohydrates? That's the detox part. You want to detox. So the Mediterranean diet is a reasonable diet, but it's got carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So for most people, if they already have too much and they're toxic, then it's not going to be enough unless they're eating like 1 meal a day or something like that. Then that would work great. If you had a Mediterranean diet eating 1 meal a day, that would be like that. Yeah, that would work great for type 2. So the point of type 2 is any way you can detox is great. In the book we wrote, we chose the ketogenic diet because the detox gets you off of carbohydrates the quickest, and it's the easiest, and it works really well for most people. But yeah, the Mediterranean diet is great if you're eating like 1 meal a day.
All right. Okay. I'm not sure if I fully understand this. Okay, black nail on the foot. Is it a fungus? How do you remove?
The dark nails sometimes come from fungus. Sometimes it's an injury and there's actually blood underneath the nail, and in that case, the nail is going to probably be removed anyway. It's probably going to come out as it grows out. No, I don't know. Depends on the diagnosis. So I think in that case, you'd see a podiatrist, because sometimes they will remove the nail entirely, and that's the way to cure it. And sometimes you can do an antifungal. So yeah, have a podiatrist look at that.
Good question from Suzanne, sorry. I'm confused. If you're to avoid carbs, protein, and fat, what are you supposed to eat?
Fiber, that'd be great. Yeah, fiber. So it turns out, that's a good question. Thank you. It turns out that you could eat one of them or two of them and do well. And the best way is either, because you kind of just, proteins are okay. But if you avoid fats entirely, like we were talking earlier about the McDougall diet, you avoid fats entirely and you're still eating carbs and stuff, and the diabetes goes away. There's another book called Mastering Diabetes that's written by two guys that have type 1 diabetes, and it's for type 1 and type 2, and it's all about a very high carbohydrate diet. And he says he's eating 100 grams of carbohydrates a day easily, and his blood sugars are perfectly normal because it's no fat. So it turns out that you could cut out what we did in our book for the ketogenic diet is 20 grams of carbohydrates, and that's all you get. But you don't have to count the protein and fat. But if you want to do no carbohydrates, no fats, no proteins, and just eat fiber, so if all you're eating is high fiber vegetables like broccoli and spinach and celery and cucumbers and peppers, and if you're living on lettuce, rabbit food, my kids call it, then yeah, that'd be a great way to detox. That would be a really good detox.
All right. Heather says, will fasting 20 and 4 help with lowering cortisol?
20. Oh yeah. Yeah. If you do 20-hour-a-day fast, that'd be great. That would actually, that's almost like one meal a day, which I have several people who do that, one meal a day.
Okay.
And you know why people, I'm thinking about one of my patients who said this, people that do that, they say, well, I don't want to limit my carbohydrates. I don't want to limit my fat. I want to eat what I like, and this is what I eat and this is what I like. And I say, okay, do intermittent fasting, so if you're fasting 20 hours a day and in your 4 hours, you get to eat whatever you want. That's probably a good idea. That'd probably work.
Okay. Lars is wondering what the difference between synochroma and berberine would be.
Okay. Synochroma is a combination of things, and it has cinnamon and then some nutrients that are common deficiencies. So vitamin D, almost everybody's deficient in vitamin D if you're not taking a supplement. Selenium, chromium, vanadium, common deficiencies, and they're needed for blood sugar utilization in the body. Vitamin D makes you more sensitive to insulin. So the formulation of the synochroma is mostly, we put the cinnamon in there to help lower the blood sugar, but most of our purpose, or my purpose for formulating it, was to give people with type 2 the nutrients that they probably need, because I found most people are deficient in them.
Okay.
Berberine is just berberine, and it's fine on its own, and it's really good. But it doesn't give you the nutrients.
Okay. Let me see here. Oh, we're out of time. Okay. Guys, again, I know it goes so fast. We will post this replay, so you can go to our YouTube channel. It'll be uploaded soon. Episode 176. Dr. Saunders, thank you so much for being here. Come back next week. Well, I know you'll be back, but all of you come back. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We did not get through all of these questions, guys, but come back next week. Post those right away in the Q&A. It's a lot easier for me to manage them there. And then I'm just going to ask Lars, could you email me, Leslie at Barton Publishing? And when this gets uploaded, I can go through and type out his answers. I'm managing a bunch of things all at one time, so it's hard for me to type the answers. But let's see, what else? See if there's anything else we can answer here. Okay, so Marilyn, you're asking about the high blood pressure, an email that you had gotten. So Marilyn, could you email me, Leslie at Barton Publishing? I might be able to find out what that email is and try to figure that out. We do have some webinars where we have talked solely about high blood pressure, and I think that might be really beneficial for you. In fact, we've done those recently. I might even be able to see which webinar or which, let me look here. I do have kind of a library, but if you go to our YouTube channel, which you can get there by going to bartonwebinar.com, if you go to that, you can just search high blood pressure, and all of the episodes that we've talked about, where we've talked about high blood pressure, will come up. See if there's a recent one here that I can just let you know. All right, let me search here. Thanks for hanging, guys. Okay, for sure, episode 71. I know there's been other ones, but that would be a good one to look at. Episode 71, where he talks about high blood pressure. And yes, it comes up quite often. So feel free to, why don't you watch that? And then if you have other questions, ask us next week, or feel free to email me. Emmanuel, the dosage, I tried to write those down really fast. I don't think we're going to know until the replay, but I think he said, is this 400 or 4,000 milligrams a day? Oh boy, I don't know for sure. COQ10, I think it was 100 to 200, 2,000 milligrams of L-carnitine, and then I'm not sure on magnesium. It might have been 400, but I'm not sure until that replay is posted. Let's see. Okay, so I got through those. Any other questions here? 400 milligrams. Thank you, Ernest. I so appreciate that. Okay, so 400 milligrams on the magnesium. I did not write down the ribose, so I'm not sure about the recommendations for that. The name of the spray, I'm not sure what he said on that either. Again, guys, we will get this posted to our YouTube channel so that you can go back and watch these. And then we do try to put some notes in there as well. Okay. Hopefully that helped you guys. Just some quick things. bartonwebinar.com. You can find the link to the diabetes solution kit. We're actually making a couple changes in there. Also, join the Barton webinar group on Facebook. That's a good place to post some recipes that you maybe love, or ask questions that other people in the group might be able to answer, or what's worked for them, what foods do you like, what's your favorite breakfast, etc. It's just a really good resource for all of you guys to talk there. And what else? I think that's it for now. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here. We will see you again next week. Invite a friend. And that's it for me today. See you soon.